When Gavin Newsom talks about California, he's like, I'm very big on California, very bullish on California. Hey, they're all moving. The only reason why they don't move is because it's too difficult to move. It's too expensive to leave versus with all the permits and it's too expensive. I was on KBLA the other day yesterday with my friend Taboo's Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want to run for president? I mentioned I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year. We know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from the state and what he's done in the state to win in any, southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but no, this is a progressive African-American-owned station. And I'm sure they like you, but he doesn't think you can win. What do you say to that when you win if you could win the look at the swing stage? There's only 8 of them. The pressure on Gavin Newsom is reaching its peak, pushing him into a complete breakdown unlike anything seen before. Once known as the confident, polished golden boy, he was visibly emotional as Bill Maher, Joe Rogan, and even Mel Gibson criticized him harshly for his controversial, overly progressive decisions. And while there's a small part that might feel sympathy for California's tearful governor, it's important to remember the turmoil he himself has brought upon his people. The backlash he's facing is entirely earned. And if you appreciate intense political commentary, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and get ready to jump straight into the heat. What's going on in California? It isn't slowing down. The games are not slowing down. Newsom did eventually come out and apologize. If you want to go on Twitter, Rob, and just go to the apology to video that he came out eventually. This is I think 4-5 days later on day 1. I asked him, I said, are you going to come out and do this? Watch how he's finally wanting to have his people be responsible. Go ahead, Rob. If you incite violence, I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account. Okay? That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated. Full stop. Already more than 220 people have been arrested and we're reviewing tapes to build additional cases and people will be pro. This all happened just days after Newsom had boldly refused to accept any responsibility for the crisis unfolding in California. He directly told Trump he wouldn't cooperate and even challenged former ICE Director Tom Homan to come and arrest him, walking around with a tough guy attitude, chest out as if nothing could touch him. That's why it was so surprising, no downright dramatic, when he completely reversed course and delivered a public apology for his actions. If you looked closely, you could even see tears in his eyes. A stark contrast to the defiant figure he was just days before that humbling moment. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence, to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him. The rule of law has increasingly been given way to the rule of dawn. The Founding Fathers, they didn't live and die to see this kind of moment. It's time for all of us to stand up. Justice Brandeis, he said it best. In a democracy, the most important office, with all due respect, Mr. President, is not the presidency, and it's certainly not governor. The most important office is office of citizen. The same man who once challenged federal authority into brushed off accountability as if it didn't apply to him suddenly backed down. Whether it was guilt, mounting pressure, or simply a desperate move for political survival, Newsom's abrupt reversal revealed the fractures in his carefully maintained public image, and people are beginning to take notice. The media rushed to control the narrative. His supporters were left shocked and his critics jumped at the chance to call out the glaring hypocrisy. One moment he was standing firm, the next he was apologizing. It's the kind of political whiplash we've seen before, and surprisingly the one who set all of this in motion was none other than Bill Maher. I see today the Trump administration, they talked about the fact that California had a rule that schools cannot be required to notify parents if their kids in school have changed their gender, their pronouns. That's the kind of thing, even though it doesn't affect a lot of people, that makes a lot of people go, well, you know what? That's the party without common sense. Now, if that's your state, how are you? I just disagree with that. I mean, the law was you would be fired. A teacher would be fired if a teacher did not report or snitch on a kid talking about their gender identity. I just think that was wrong. I think teachers should teach. I don't think they should be required to turn in kids. And by the way, turn in, we're talking about their parents. How can a snitch? The idea of a snitch and a parent to me doesn't compare. Well, I don't, but what is the job of a teacher? Is to teach. If Johnny's talking about some identity issue or some issue about liking someone of the same sex is the teacher's job. Bomb comment. He's an evil snake. I don't know how to describe it. You see what he just did there? And Bill got it right. Somehow it's snitching. If the parent finds out, if the teacher says, oh, your kid has been going by other names and changing pronouns and dressing up this way, you don't know about that as the parents. That's the snitch. It's the parent's job to raise the child. I know many of you have seen that clip and are asking, what does this have to do with the current chaos in California? Well, here's the link. Bill Maher exposed Gavin Newsom's smooth yet evasive persona when he called out the controversial California law that allows teachers to withhold information from parents if a student chooses to transition. Yes, that bill passed under Newsom's leadership effectively sidelines parents from one of the most personal and life-altering decisions a child can make. Trump attempted to challenge it at the federal level, but Newsom held his ground proudly, defending a policy that shifts parental rights into the hands of the state. That moment stripped away the mask on his so-called progressive stance, revealing a law that gives educators the authority to hide crucial information from the very parents who raise, support, and care for these children. If that's not a direct insult to families, then what is? This goes beyond policy. It's a blatant power move. I was on KBLA yesterday with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want to run for president? I mentioned I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year. We know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from the state and what he's done in the state to win in any, southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but no, this is a progressive African-American-owned station and I'm sure they like you, but he doesn't think you can win. What do you say to that when you're if you could win the look at the swing stages only, and this is where everything truly began to unravel for Gavin Newsom. The carefully crafted public image started to crack and people finally began to see what was underneath. His political momentum, once hyped as presidential material, quickly began to stall. But here's the real twist. It wasn't just conservatives calling him out. Even members of his own progressive base. The very people who once stood firmly behind him started to distance themselves. Why? Because Newsom wasn't just following the progressive agenda, he was racing past it. For many, it became overwhelming. He had shifted from being the face of California liberalism to someone who appeared out of touch, overly ideological, and more focused on checking political boxes than offering grounded, effective leadership. All of this, ironically, was brought into the spotlight by Bill Maher. The once so loyal support that had surrounded him began to fade. Allies grew silent, donors grew cautious, and the talk of President Newsom turned into nothing more than a feint. An easy murmur. Joe Rogan only added fuel to the fire when he said nobody wants President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. That guy's a con man. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids to being caught public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors, nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician. Just a stone-cold narrative-driven politician. Nobody thinks he's a real human. Whether you like Trump or not, you think he's corrupt or not, that's a human being. You know what that guy is. Same thing with RFK Jr. Whether you believe that he's correct about vaccines or whether you believe his policies would be effective, and that's a human being. With Newsom, you got like this construct, this cardboard cutout of a person. I don't think people want that, but they might want it more than they want President Trump. Exactly. Newsom comes off as cunning and slippery, a true political chameleon if there ever was one. He's hard to pin down because he's constantly shifting and adjusting his stance depending on who's watching. One moment he's playing the tough guy, full of bravado and defiance, and the next he's down in the dust, apologizing for the same boldness he just flaunted. One day he's out there marching with ICE protesters, loudly supporting open borders.